And a show of hands, please don't boo these people. How many do not watch us? Get out. And she's the only one? This is going to be easy then. You guys are going to applaud whatever I say. It's going to be like a rock interview.
Hi, this is Roman Sohor with The Journal, and we've been fortunate enough to get a couple minutes to speak to Mick Foley.
Just a couple, though.
Okay.
I got to be out of here. I was told Barry Williams gave you guys 5 minutes. I'm going to give you 3.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
then I better hurry up. You may know Mick Foley from the WWF, but today he's here not only to talk about that, but also his 2 books that he has written. First, Have a Nice Day came out last fall, #1 New York Times bestseller, and Mick Foley's Christmas Chaos, which is out just in time for the holiday gift-giving season. If I can do a little cheap plug on his
I
behalf.
appreciate it. It looks more tasteful when you plug my books cheaply.
And I also must say that they are both excellent reads.
Thank you.
I'm going to apologize for having to go with the notes, but we don't have the teleprompter in the studio.
I've got some notes for my speech tonight, too. I'm going to tell some stories about fairy tales, so those are my notes for the speech tonight.
Great.
Thanks.
Okay. First, since you're here mostly for the book, I guess, I want to ask you a little bit about Have a Nice Day. Before your autobiography came out, no one could have expected that it was going to be the huge sensation that it really was. What were your initial expectations for the book?
Well, first off, I'm not really here to promote the book. You're doing that for me. I'm actually here, just to speak to the students. It just so happens that it coincides with the Christmas Chaos coming out. But my expectations for the book were, I was told like 100,000 copies was it was a huge book. So, and I was also told by our publisher they weren't expecting a lot of wrestling fans to buy it because I guess they assumed they didn't read. And so they printed 50,000.
Okay.
So I was in kind of like the mixed position of having a book that was so popular that nobody could get it. So it was flattering on one hand because I had the hardest book in the world at that time to get your hands on. On the other hand, it was frustrating because it was 6 weeks before I actually saw my book in any bookstore besides ones I did a book signing at. So when my book hit #1 and then that damn Oprah Winfrey ran the Tuesdays with Maury special, it kind of knocked me off. Not so much, I mean, granted, that book has been like a phenomenon, even though it's so thin, it's only got one side to it. It really was tough for me to try to compete when my books weren't available.
And are there any plans to do anything further with Have a Nice Day?
Yeah, actually, I've already finished a follow-up, a cheap sequel to it. Try to make a couple bucks off the
Have an Even Better Day?
Have an Even Better Day. No, I think I'm going to call it Foley is Good, and it's actually 36th done. All the chapters are done except for the last 2, which I'm going to find out when and if. Hopefully it will be published. I can't see why it wouldn't be. And then I'll make the last 2 chapters as current as possible.
Great. And what inspired the book?
Christmas Chaos? Oh, someone's got a cell phone? How rude
not
is
me.
that?
Turn mine
hey,
off.
Hey! Right, pull a Barry Williams on you. You know what? I knew I was going to be retiring when shortly after Have a Nice Day came out. It's kind of difficult to go from reaching your dreams to finding something else to do with your life. And then I suddenly had a great feeling. What is this? An epiphany? And I realized that I was going to become America's most beloved author of children's Christmas books. And I presented that idea to HarperCollins, and even though I had no proof that I could write children's books, they let me have a try. I kind of had writer's block for a while, but when push came to shove and I had to start producing, I thought about a little boy I met on the road who had been severely burned.
Okay, that's going to be my next question.
Yeah, and I dedicated the book to him. His name was Antonio, and he was the little boy who put the spirit of Christmas back into a broken-hearted family.
It was a great story. I think it's going to be wonderful for kids, wrestling fans, and non-fans too. I was wondering exactly how you were classified. I went looking for it yesterday. First stop was Borders Books, and they have a little computer. You type in what the book you're looking for is. For me, it was under cookbooks. Went to the cookbook section, could not find it. Went to Barnes & Noble, asked the nice lady at the counter where it was. She told me humor books, couldn't find it there. So finally I went to Walden Books, where they just had a display of your book and The Rock's book
Yeah.
just up in front. I was able to finally get it, so
Yeah, it's a conspiracy.
that's what it must be.
You know, sometimes they print it as Mick Foley's Christmas Chaos, and there was some thinking as to whether or not it would even be considered a children's book. And I was like, well, wait a second. Okay, so you got a book about Santa Claus with pictures that's 2,500 words long, and that's going to be nonfiction, and then you've got Harry Potter, which is 300,000 words long, and that's going to be children's. But it is considered a children's book, and it's actually number 7 on the New York Times list. So I'm kind of fortunate. I have 2 bestsellers going at the same time.
great.
One in fiction on paperback, nonfiction paperback, and the children's book.
Great. Do you plan on writing any more children's books?
Yeah, I've got a couple. I've got a couple that I've already written. A couple. I've got an idea that everybody seems to love, and it's stories about our WWF superstars or wrestlers. I get in trouble for calling them wrestlers, but they're the wrestlers as small children, all living on the same block.
Oh, okay.
And so it's pretty neat because they're kids characters, but they have the same different. Hey, how you doing? They have the same. They have the same little personalities that they do as adults.
Excellent. I guess we'll get to some questions that...
I might read a little bit of that tonight.
Great.
A little bit, yeah.
I'm going to ask you a few questions about the WWF.
Sure.
First of all, I know when you first started in the WWF, they were kind of in their infamous slump period when
Yeah.
Nitro was surging, and now you've kind of been one of the superstars that has taken the WWF from that to
Can we
kind
edit
of...
that down
Sure.
to you have been the superstar?
Sure.
No.
As long as Stone Cold
I
doesn't
happen to
see
have
the
been
tape.
there when it happened, yeah.
Uh-huh. How have things changed from then to now?
You know what, I guess when they brought me in, that was kind of acknowledging that they were going to start taking a rougher approach. And so I maybe for better or worse, I was part of that, real physical style that's become very popular. But at the same time, I think the biggest difference was when Vince McMahon had a meeting with the boys and admitted that he'd kind of fallen behind times. And if the guys were going to be successful, it had to be in large part because the characters were going to be an extension of their own personalities. You couldn't just throw a ridiculous gimmick on someone, give them some airtime, and think that it was going to get over with the fans, because it wasn't. So the characters, like Stone Cold, is just an extension of Stone Cold. The Rock is just an extension of Dwayne Johnson. And for me, when everyone else was going in that kind of rough, rugged direction, I started going to the really goofy, nerdy direction, and I had that market all to myself. So I've been pretty successful with that part of myself.
Here on campus, I know you're extremely popular.
It's because nerds are cool.
Roars of laughter coming out of every dormitory room.
Good.
You can hear it all down the hall. I think everyone remembers your Rock, Mr. Rock and Mankind, This Is Your Life segment as probably the classic as far as wrestling has gone the past year or so.
I'd much rather talk about the Rock and Sock This Is Your Life party than answer questions about barbed wire matches in Japan. Definitely.
All right, well, speaking of barbed wire matches
now you're
in
gonna start
Japan.
I just told you I didn't want to talk about that.
It's kind of segueing into something else here. Both you and Terry Funk have publicly spoken about kind of how your brutal beatings of each other have kind of led to mutual respect and a friendship between the two of you. Now, the last year or so, and actually for years before that even, you and Triple H have gone at it quite a few times, quite a few brutal matches, from when he won King of the Ring to the steel cage match at SummerSlam '97, through your retirement run as Cactus Jack this year. And I think a lot of the credit for Triple H becoming the big villain that he is in the sport right now goes to you kind of building him up. Do you guys have that same kind of camaraderie?
Yeah, it's a real interesting story. Is that after Hell in the Cell, which was really my last match, I went on to have another one at WrestleMania, but I consider Hell in the Cell to be the last one. I saw him in the dressing room, and he was bleeding pretty bad, and my arm had been cut pretty bad. And we looked at each other and kind of nodded, and then we started making out.
Wow.
So I think it's definitely made us closer.
Wow.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. It was just a hug.
There's 7 continents, right?
friendly.
I've wrestled in 6 of them. I've been around the world a couple times. I've wrestled in 44 or 45 states in the U.S., but I've only wrestled in Trent, New Jersey 1 time.
Now, if there was anything about that retirement run from like
Yeah.
last autumn through No Way Out,
Yeah.
would you have changed anything? Would you have done it differently?
Well, I definitely wouldn't have done the WrestleMania match. You know, I don't know. Usually, when a guy is gearing up for his last match, he doesn't put on 20 pounds that month, and so you can see that I'd already started celebrating my retirement.
Got
You
the
know,
haircut.
Yeah, I got the haircut, the semi haircut.
Yeah.
And which was pretty dramatic at the time. And then I went at Hershey Park. I was celebrating my birthday, and I shaved my head, thinking I was going to be incognito. And I walked downstairs the next morning. They said, "How are you, Mr. Foley?"
Oh, no one thought you were.
Yeah.
No one thought you were Tank Abbott from.
I got confused as a Bruce Springsteen show, and someone thought I was Tank Abbott.
We all thought that maybe you were trying to
Yeah, I'm trying to imitate
cut in on
Tank
him.
Abbott.
Well, how did you segue into the latest role as commissioner?
Oh, you've used this word segue several times.
I'm sorry.
now. How did I make the transition?
Yeah.
Metamorphosis?
Yeah, or how did the idea come about to make you the
Well,
commissioner?
it's in there somewhere. I think that I talked about wanting to be one of the Stooges.
Yeah, I remember you said that.
And I kind of pitched myself as being the commissioner before I ever left. And so it got, people were asking me, these internet people,
Uh-huh.
are you one of them?
I look, but I'm not
Yeah, right.
addicted.
Internet geek.
Mick Foley made me cry.
People started asking me about hey, you really coming back as commissioner? And really the only thing they had to go on was the fact that I said I wanted to be one. But I think it's like subliminal suggestion. It was talked about so much that Vince thought it was real. So he called me into his office like 3 days after I'd shaved my head and asked me if I wanted to be the commissioner. I thought I was going to be off for 6 months. And come back in some non-wrestling role. And
Yeah,
actually turned
it was
out
a
to be
quick return.
Yeah, less than 3. It was nice. The wrestling show rolls along so quickly, and people's minds, their memories are so short that
Yeah.
it seemed like I'd been gone forever.
Definitely.
So it turned into a pretty good gig. And the fact that I get cheered more for doing stupid Commissioner Foley things than I ever did by risking my life for the fans makes me sit back and think about the choices I made in my life.
Of course. If there was any one wrestler you could have a match with, past, present, living, dead, who would it be?
You know what? The last person who asked this question to me was Larry King. And I'll give you the same answer, but I bet you'll react to it differently. It would be Bruiser Brody.
Okay.
Bruiser Brody. Now, when I asked Larry, you know what he did? Hey, there's one person you get asshole past president it would be. I said, I'd have to be Bruiser Brody. He went, oh, God, the Bruiser, oh. I didn't want to say, yeah, Larry, he was stabbed to death in a dressing room 13 years ago. You know, Larry wasn't on top of his wrestling.
I think he said somewhere publicly once that when he interviews authors, he makes a point to not read the book before he goes on. Not making that up. I actually think I read it somewhere.
Yeah, he did. He definitely didn't read mine. I don't think Larry actually reads any of the books he claims he does, or meets half the people he does. This guy is the biggest name dropper the world has ever known.
We got Barry Williams, Larry King now. This is great.
Wait, and I just dropped his name, and now I'm calling him a name dropper?
Lately, the WWF and wrestling in general has come under a lot of pressure from groups like the PTC, saying that it's too violent, it's too vulgar, too much sexual content in it. And I know you let your children watch.
Yeah.
How do you respond to their
Well, I do, but I let my children watch hardcore porn too, so.
Okay, then.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. Yeah, let me tell you how desperate it's gotten. You see this little guy? Can you do a little zoom here? See that guy? Naked Elf? My book has been banned in many stores across the country because of this.
Wow.
Naked Elf. So I would say, yeah, that we have a little bit of pressure on us. I would say if this wasn't a WWF affiliated book, the Naked Elf
Would have been
okay. It didn't seem to bother Tommy Pickles and the Rugrats when he walked around naked. I think it's a little ridiculous, and I'm going to address that situation tonight. But I think what's dangerous about a guy like the Brent Bozell and the Brent Bozell and the PTC is that if anyone goes around shouting out numbers and making a big ruckus, as long as he's reasonably intelligent, which he is, unfortunately people are going to start believing him. So nobody bothers to question his statistics. They all listen, and right now he's resorted to using bullying, blackballing techniques, and it's unfortunate. But we've got WWF has a lawsuit against him, so
Yeah.
I think it's important that guy be stopped. And really, it's okay for Bozell to monitor what his children watch. It's not okay for him to monitor what my children watch.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks for getting me upset.
Oh, I'm very sorry. What was your college experience like? Since we're here on a college campus, I thought I might
I don't know if I should go to
spend a lot of time
Oh,
sleeping in cars.
Yeah, actually, I did. The last college I did advertised the night as an evening with Mick Foley, which was unusual because when I was in college, very few women wanted to spend an evening with Mick Foley. So my last 2 years I was in college, I was concentrating on wrestling, and I was leaving every weekend. So I think I had out of 30 potential weeks at school. I think I was actually weekends. I was there for 3 of them. Otherwise, I was traveling, making the $10 payoffs, and kind of paying my dues all at once.
And if the wrestling thing hadn't panned out for you back then, do you have any idea what you might have been doing today?
I was in television and radio production, and I was actually, you don't mind me saying, I was the outstanding student in my major. Granted, there are only 12 people in my major.
Sounds like our television production major here.
But it was a pretty distinguished group. Actually, out of our group, Kevin James has gone on to have his own sitcom.
Oh.
And Ted Demme has become a pretty well-known director. His uncle is Jonathan Demme, but Ted said some things. So
Doesn't hurt.
I'm kind of like the jabroni of our group.
You probably got the most money.
I doubt it.
I have two more questions before I let you go. The first one I am asking on behalf of my brother. He wanted to know who Iron Balls McGinty is. Something that obscure reference from your book.
That's right. In my book, I said I taped a 10-pound weight plate to my foot to deliver the big low blow kick, and I said that unless Terry Funk was doubling his Iron Balls McGinty, he was going to go down. That was a reference to the Steve Martin movie, The Jerk,
Okay.
where Steve was doing some kung fu and karate, and he was knocking off bad guy after bad guy, and he finally went for his big kick, and his foot went boing, 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 and then he was laid up with a cast on his foot, and his wife said, "How are you to know that was Iron Balls McGinty?" So.
And our very, very last question. I see you're wearing a Mickey Mouse Disney jacket.
Yeah, I am.
And I know you're an amusement park fanatic.
Right.
I got to intern down at Walt Disney World a couple semesters ago. So I was wondering, what is your favorite thing to do while you're down there?
While I'm down at Disney?
Yeah.
You mean what's my favorite ride, or just the favorite thing?
What is your
to
favorite
do?
ride?
My favorite ride at Disney is, I'm a big fan of Thunder Mountain, not because it's the scariest roller coaster, but it's really neat, and you can see a little something different every time.
Yeah,
You can really enjoy it. You don't have to worry about getting sick to your stomach, unless you're riding with Allison over there.
Had to get one of those in, didn't we?
I just like walking around. I like the feeling it gives me to be there, and especially if you go to a non-crowded thing. Want me to tell you a little unknown Mickey Mouse story? See
Sure.
this thing here?
Uh-huh.
It says winner of the Mickey 200.
Uh-huh.
I just found this. This is an award I won on the Disney cruise, and it was for making the best-looking vegetable car. Where I was with my kids. I didn't realize it was like an hour-long thing, and when I got in, there was only like 5 minutes left to make your car. So I whittled out, I had a knife, and you're making things out of a cucumber and carrots and celery. You gotta make a car. My car was like the Edsel of vegetable cars. And when it went to go do the race part, it just literally fell right off the ramp, and so it didn't even roll. But they gave the winners, Mickey came in to award the winners. And they gave the winner of the Mickey 200, and then they had the special prize for the best looking car. And when Mickey Mouse handed us the special award, I knew then that Mickey was on the take. So I wear this, it's like in honor of the shattering of my childhood innocence. I realized that Mickey Mouse was for sale.
So when you go, do you just go and walk around with your family, or do you take the VIP tour?
It depends on what season it is. I've had a couple of VIP tours, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I get hassled more than those big Hollywood guys.
I'm sure you do.
They actually dress up real conspicuously so that they'll give them the VIP tour. And, So with WWF being as successful as it is, it's kind of hard to walk around when it's crowded. But I try to go during a less crowded time. I'd rather not cheat the people, you know. I'd rather go and enjoy myself with not many people around. You know, I really like desolate, barren places, which is why in some ways I miss wrestling for WCW. You know what I'm saying? You smell what I'm cooking.
All right. Thank you very
All right,
much
okay.
for your time. This has been Roman Sohor with Mick Foley.
Who is Iron Balls McGinty?
Iron Balls McGinty, right here.
All right.
Reporting for The Journal with Mick Foley, wrestler, family man, hardcore legend, and best-selling author.
Thank you.